Hi there, Jeep owners. Today in your 2021 Jeep Cherokee, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's InvisiBrake supplemental braking system. Now there's 5 main components you're going to need when flat towing your Jeep behind your motorhome. You're going to need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You also need your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar. You'll need your diode wiring, which will take all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer those to the lights at the back of your vehicle so people know your intentions when going down the road. You'll also need your supplemental braking system, which will take the information from our motorhome. In this case, it's going to use our diode wiring to send the signal back to activate the braking system to help our vehicle come to a safe stop. And the last main component you're going to need is your base plate, which is the attachment point here on our vehicle where our tow bar will attach. And this is what our braking system looks like when it's installed. The main unit installs inside the vehicle, and we've mounted it underneath the driver's seat here. In addition to the main operating unit here, you need your activating cylinder, and that's located right next to it here. And what's cool about this system compared to a lot of the other permanently installed braking systems is the way that these components are remotely mounted. Now, oftentimes the operating unit is remote, and usually it's under the hood. With the InvisiBrake here, it's designed to be inside, so it probably will last longer than those other ones because it's better protected from the elements. But the cylinder is remote on this one. We've got it right next to the operating unit, and you can put this and hide it in a lot of different locations in the vehicle. This is just where we decided to put it. But what's nice about this is we keep this away from our brake pedal. On a lot of the competitors, they actually mount the cylinder right onto the brake pedal, and that large cylinder can be a little bit cumbersome when driving. It's placed in a way where it's supposed to be out of the way. You can still access the pedal, but in a panic situation, it could be potentially, you could accidentally hit it, you could possibly damage it, and you could maybe even hurt yourself on it, depending on the situation that you're in. So we're gonna head up to the driver's seat now so you can see the components are attached to the pedal. And here we can see our brake pedal. We've got our clamp wrapped around it there, and you can see it's just this clamp. So when you put your foot on here, you've got full access here where your foot's not going to collide with the cylinder. Oftentimes on those other pedals, the actuating cylinder is mounted in this location, and most of it stays towards the back side of the pedal, but usually part of that cylinder sticks out a little bit past the actual face of the pedal here. And so what can happen again in those panic stops, your foot's pretty big, you might bump it with the toe of your foot here when you're going to hit it. Under most driving, you're going to be aware and you're going to press it in the right location. But with the InvisiBrake here, we don't have to worry about that because it's so much smaller. The system uses a pulley, which is hidden under the carpet here, and the cable from our pulley goes back to that cylinder next to the unit. So everything is nice remote and hidden with this. It's a lot easier to just drive around normally. You can adjust the output from your system right here. This is your brake pressure adjustment. You simply pull this out and you can adjust the pressure as needed. It does vary from vehicle to vehicle and how much your vehicle's loaded, and also the motorhome that you're pulling will determine, or which motorhome that's pulling your vehicle will determine how much pressure you need here. The bigger your motorhome, you might need less pressure because you might not be pushing it as much, and the more weight you've got here in the vehicle, if you're loading it down with some gear, you may need to bump that pressure up to compensate for that extra weight. We're now inside the motorhome here, and the system has a light that's included with it that you can install in your motorhome, and this has a direct link all the way back to the stoplight switch mounted on the vehicle. And the reason why we want it like this is because this way we know for sure that our braking system's working, because it's going off of the stoplight switch that's on the pedal on the vehicle, which means this light will never activate unless that brake pedal actually moves, activating the stoplight switch. So we're gonna go ahead and hit the brake here, and we can see that our light lit up. So we know for sure our system's working properly. We get this feedback, and what's also nice about this feedback, I'm gonna let off the brake pedal, and we can see that it turned off. That's important because if you're driving down the road and you hit your brakes and you let off and you just continue driving and this light is lit up, you know, hey, my brakes are dragging behind me. I need to pull over right now and figure out what is going on. So this real-time feedback is really important for determining your system's working properly at all times to help ensure that it's never in a condition that you're going to be damaging it. Now, the likelihood of something keeping the brake pedal on is low, but if you got some gear in your vehicle, something could fall down and potentially hold that pedal on, and you won't know it when you're all the way up here. But this light here will keep you updated on that pedal position. Here at the front of our vehicle, we can take a look at some other components that it comes with. This here is the cable for that monitor light that you'll get with it that plugs into the vehicle, and it has the same connection over on the other side for our motorhome to send that signal all the way through. It also comes with a breakaway switch. That comes included with your braking system. And in the event of a catastrophic disconnect between your vehicle and your motorhome, this tether here that is between the breakaway pin and the motorhome will stay attached to our motorhome, and that'll pull the pin out of our breakaway switch here. When the pin is pulled from the breakaway switch, it will activate the braking system to help our vehicle come to a safe stop. So we can go ahead and pull this pin out, and we'll show you the pedal activating. And we can hear it activating. When we put it back in, the system stops. And the InvisiBrake will use the running light circuit from your motorhome here to trickle charge the battery on your vehicle as well. So that's really nice whenever you're cruising around, flat towing your vehicle. Just as long as you got your running lights on, you're going to be topping it up here in the back. In some vehicles, it's really important that you have that if it's got any kind of accessory mode that it's in. On our Jeep here, it's not necessarily that important because we can turn it off, but if you're going to be on like an 8-hour plus trip, which a lot of times is recommended to stop and stuff like that. If you're just trying to haul on through, having that trickle charge is going to make sure your vehicle's going to be able to start when you get to your destination. We'll begin our installation by mounting our major components. We're going to start with our box here, and we're going to mount this under the driver's seat. The ears on the side I've bent downward. You can use some pliers to do that. We're going to place it on the carpet here. You're going to use a razor knife, and we're just going to set it where we want it, and we're just going to cut a slit down the carpet, and we're going to cut one on the opposite side here. And then now we get those slits cut, our unit, we can just drop those ears down into those slits. And that's what's going to hold it onto our carpet there. Next, we're going to be mounting our cylinder. And in order to do this, we need to get below our carpet here, because the cable portion of it we're going to have under the carpet. The cylinder we're actually going to mount under the seat. And then the pulley is going to go towards the pedal here. So to get underneath the carpet, we're going to pull out a couple of these trim pieces here. We're going to start with this black one here. Grab your trim tool, get behind it, and that just pops out of there. We'll then just set that aside. We can then pull this piece up here. That just pops up, and then it pulls back. It's underneath this piece here, so we're going to have to also pop this up some. So we can kind of get behind it and pop that out. That's really as far as we need to pop it out, just enough to be able to separate these two pieces here, because this piece clicks into this piece in this little hole there. So you got to pull this piece out of there. And then we can set that aside, and that'll allow us to get under our carpet here. With those panels out of the way now, we can pull our carpet back up, and we're going to take our cylinder, and I've routed it from in the back under the carpet here, just kind of showing you how I pull the carpet up. You start on the side here and pull it up, and then you can work it around the pedals, and then I'll just push off to the side. Underneath the seat, you'll have like a vent duct that you can feel air coming out of. That's the hole that we routed our cylinder cable through. So here's the cylinder cable here. So it's going under the carpet, under the seat here, and then there's this hole under the seat that's already pre-existing there. We just stuck our hand under the carpet and pushed it until it came out that hole that's underneath the seat there. The other end of our cable here, so the cylinder ends under the seat, and the other end of our cable has the pulley. The pulley needs to mount on the firewall straight back from our pedal here. So we cut out some of the insulation there using our razor knife. Just a little knife like this. And then I also did cut it down because we're going to have to route the cable down. We're going to also have to cut out a small section somewhere here in the middle. I'm not exactly sure where yet. We'll find that out once we mount the pulley, because this little sleeve here has to get mounted as well. But I did cut out the area where we're going to mount the pulley there. It's going to mount right in this little section right here. We're going to use the self-tapping screws that come provided in our kit to attach it. You'll use an 8mm socket here to run these in. These are the smaller of the self-tapping screws that come in your kit. You can see the smaller ones there. The larger ones look like that. You don't want those. Those are for later. So we're just going to put this on our gun now. We're going to run it right into the pulley. Our pulley has four holes in it. You got 2 on each side. So we're just going to line it up right there. We're trying to put it to where it's on the side of the pedal here, just to the outside of it. This is our pedal clamp. I haven't got it attached all the way yet, but I was just kind of holding it up there just to see when we do have it attached here, that it's going to line up with our pulley clamp here on the side. It's going to eventually attach to this piece. But we'll come back to that. That was just kind of temporarily there, just so I could eyeball it to see where that is going to line up like we want it to. Now we're just going to take this self-tapper, put it through one of those holes and run it in. It is important that you check on the other side to make sure you're not going to run your screw into anything. I've already took a look on the other side to make sure, and we are safe to put our pulley in this location. So we're just going to take our self-tapper here, line it up with one of the holes, kind of center the pulley a little bit in our little nook that we cut out, and then we're just going to run it in. And there we go. I don't have it all the way tight yet. I actually like to leave it a little bit loose so I can kind of pivot it around just a little bit, kind of twist it. That way I can get the best alignment before I run in my next screw. And then we're just going to repeat this process, running in the next screws. Just kind of pulling this over, seeing how it's, because we want to have a straight cable from our pulley to our pedal attachment, which again is going to be this little ear here on our bracket. And it looks like that's going to be nice and straight. So I'm just going to run in the rest of those fasteners now in the remaining holes. So now we've got our pulley pulled back and we've got it mounted up there. I went ahead and I cut down a little bit further, and then I cut out another section down here. And this little section down here is where we mounted up the sleeve. There's a little anchor that just clips right over top of the sleeve here, and you're going to use 2 screws to run that down. We did use the larger screws that come in the kit to run this down to hold that anchor in place. And you can see there, that's just to hold the sheathing, and that allows our cable to move here. And we did also slip this all the way up, and we're probably going to take and slip out, cut out just a little bit more of this insulation here, just to ensure our cable isn't going to rub on that and potentially damage itself. So we'll be taking just a little bit more of that out. But that's basically our pedal set up there. Got it anchored to the floor. We went ahead and then, after getting those anchored, we took our bracket here and we went ahead and snugged that down. I already had it, we saw it was loosely just sitting on there before, so I just pushed it up here to line it up to see where it was going to match up, and then I just tightened down the hardware. Now you might notice that these screws are sticking out really far. The reason why they are sticking out so far is because these are not the screws that come in your kit. The screws that come in your kit are actually not going to be long enough to clamp around this pedal here. This is a really wide arm here on our brake pedal, and the bolts that it come with just aren't going to cut it, so you will have to provide your own bolts. You're going to want to make sure you have bolts that are at least 2 inches long, if not longer. We can always trim off the excess here, and we'll be doing that before we finish up our installation. So now that we've got the pulley section and all this mounted, we can move on to running our wires and getting things wired up here. We still haven't mounted the end of our pulley here. It has a cylinder on the end of it there. It's just sitting under the seat. I recommend that you don't mount that until right at the very end, because we got some hoses and stuff to connect to it. And where we've got it under the seat there, if you mount it, you're going to have a real hard time hooking stuff up. So we'll come back to that. We'll take a quick look at the cylinder under the seat, and then we're going to get all the wires routed and get everything else hooked up. So here we can see under the seat, I did move the driver's seat all the way forward, but you can see here's our cylinder. It's going to hang out right here next to our unit. We're going to be mounting it right to the carpet. But again, you want to just leave this here so we can access our hoses. We're going to have to probably pull this unit up to access the things in the back here. So we don't want anything permanently secured right here at this time. We can also see the end of our cylinder here. This is that hole under the seat that I was talking about. It's already there for a vent. So when you get your heat and stuff turned on floor, your passengers here in the back, they get a little bit of heat out of here. It's not going to damage your unit, and it's not really going to block the heat coming into the car. There's still plenty of gap here for the air to come out and still get into the cab. So we've gone ahead and routed our cables now, and went ahead and plugged them in here so we can follow them. So the cable that has a 6-pin connector with 4 wires on it, white, brown, yellow, and green, that's just going to plug into the back of the unit. We need to route it outside. The 4-pin connector here, the long flat one, has 4 wires going to it, a black, white, red, and another black. That'll just plug into the unit as well, and we're going to route that outside. There is a nipple located right here. It's serrated. We're going to take the hose that comes in our kit, the smaller hose, and push it on there, and then we can push in the airline that comes in our kit, and we're going to route that outside. And lastly, the quick connect fitting here on the end uses the small airline tubing. It just goes from the unit here and just pokes into the quick connect, and then pokes into the quick connect on our cylinder right here. So we'll be mounting those back in this location, and we're going to use a zip tie as well to mount this next to the box right there. But we're going to go ahead and finish showing you how we've got these routed. So they go through the slit in the bottom where we had routed the cable and pulley mechanism through. So all of our wiring goes through there, and it goes under the carpet and it heads towards the front. So here you can see our wires where they come out from underneath our carpet here. We just continue routing them up. They head actually straight up, and you'll find a grommet just above where we mounted our pulley. So we just kind of routed them underneath here and then pushed them through the grommet. They go out the other side, and then we pull them up into the engine compartment from there. And while we're down here, I just wanted to talk about the stoplight switch. This does not come included in your kit, but it's a part that we had to add in order to make the monitor light work properly on this vehicle. The stoplight switch on the vehicle does not give us the appropriate output, so we have to add our own, and you can get this here at eTrailer. It's custom fit for this vehicle, and it comes with a bracket that's designed to mount on it, and it actually just attaches to a bolt located here. So if you look straight back from your brake pedal, you're going to have 4 bolts that hold your brake booster on the outside. There's like one at the bottom corner here. If we just go straight up, we're looking at the top left bolt. That's the one that we remove, slide our bracket on, and then just tighten it back down. The switch then will mount right here in the other end of the bracket. The plunger will face towards the pedal, and you'll adjust the distance between the arm here and the switch to make sure that the plunger is depressed. It's in when the pedal is in its normal resting position, and then when you press the pedal, that will allow the plunger to come out, and that's what activates our switch. We wanted to talk about this here because while we're down here, it's a great time to talk about it, and we also have additional wires that need to be run for this switch as well. So you'll get a monitor light output wire in your kit. It should have just a little bullet connector on one end, and it's just a black wire otherwise. You'll get 2 of these harnesses in your kit. One of them is going to be significantly longer than the other. The longer one is for your motorhome side. The shorter one is for your vehicle side, and there's only going to be a female bullet on one side. So we take the bullet side, and that's going to be at the front. We route the rest of the cable here to this connector on our switch. So I actually started on the inside. I connected it here, and then I routed the bullet out, and I just followed the same path that the rest of our wires are going to the engine compartment. The other end of our stoplight switch here has a red wire attached to it. This comes with the stoplight switch. We just routed it down, and we connected it to the red wire here from our unit, our brake unit that we're routing. Because this is the power wire for the braking system that's coming from that 4 flat connector that's plugged into the back of it. So since this is going to be power anyway, we can go ahead and tap right off of here to get power for our stoplight switch to make our monitor light work. So you can just cut the red wire and then add the additional red wire that comes with the stoplight switch in. Just crimp those down to get that on there. So we're going to head outside now on the other side, and we'll show you how to get our wires where they need to route from here. So it's really difficult to see the other side of the grommet that we pushed through. It's located just below the brake booster. So this is the brake reservoir right here. The booster is right behind it. The reservoir kind of attaches on top of the master cylinder and goes right to it. So this black cylinder that's right behind it's the booster. It's going to be just below that. So that way you can get down there and grab it to pull them up. This is all of those wires. We just reached out and grabbed them. That's that airline tubing. So we got a bunch of things we need to connect here. So let's start with the 6-pin harness, the one that has the white, brown, yellow, and green. That's the more square, closer to square-shaped connector end that's plugged into our unit. That actually just routes right up here to where our diode wiring is. We had previously installed diode wiring on this to make the lighting signals at the back match our motorhome when we're flat towing. We need those same signals from the motorhome to activate the braking system, to tell the system like, hey, both of these wires are lit up. That means that we're braking, apply the brakes. So we simply just take our diode wires, which is these here. I went ahead and put tape on the wire that we had run out, so that way we could identify the difference between the two since they look so similar, these harnesses. So this is our factory harness. We simply just cut each wire, and then we took the same color wire from our harness that's on our braking system, and we just added it right in. So you can see white from our diode wiring. We took the white from our braking system, crimped them together, and then just reconnected our diode wiring back together. There is an additional white wire that we added to the other side and put a ring terminal on it and ran it over to ground just to make sure we've got an extra redundant ground for our braking system, because your diode wiring typically gets its ground from the frame located at the back of the vehicle, maybe behind the taillight assembly, and this is just going to give us a little bit more robust ground. It's not necessary, but I highly recommend it. And we just continue that with each of the wire colors. So we add our brown into the brown circuit for our taillights. We add the yellow for the left turn and brake, and the green for the right turn brake signal for that side. And you can see there's no additional wires on this side because we're just reconnecting it back to the diode wiring. This wire goes up to the front for your 6-pole connector to get those lighting signals sent back. So now we've got this harness connected. We did use butt connectors, heat shrink butt connectors for all of these since it's outside the vehicle to keep out any kind of corrosion from entering in there by sealing them up. The next harness that we have is the 4-flat style connector that's plugged into the unit. That had 4 circuits coming out of it, although it only kind of seems like 3 because one of them has 2 wires inside this black sheathing. The black sheathing here, we actually route this up to the front where we're going to plug it into the breakaway switch that comes in the kit. The black and the red wires here that are next to one another is the power and ground for our braking system. So they actually just route right over to here. We've got them right here. And the black one, we just put a ring terminal on and attached it to the ground right there. And for our positive, before hooking it to the positive on our battery, we take the fuse harness that comes in our kit and we put that in line to make sure we got proper circuit protection. So we put a ring terminal on one side of the fuse harness, crimped it on and attached it there. Use a 10mm socket to remove these nuts, and then you can reattach them. The other end, we use a heat shrink butt connector to connect to our red wire to give us our power. I do recommend leaving the fuse out. I've currently got mine installed because I just got done testing the system to make sure it was working properly, but you should hold off on putting that in until you've finished your installation. That way you don't accidentally cause any shorts along the way. So we can now go on to our black wire that we talked about that's got 2 wires inside of it. This goes to the breakaway switch. So this actually just routed around the battery. And then once we get around the battery here, we just follow the diode wiring where it passes through an opening just kind of below our coolant reservoir here. And that'll come out the other side. Right here, if you pop this off, it's a little bit easier to access, but you can see where the wires come out here. And there's a ton of excess for this breakaway switch wire. So we bundle it all up right here and zip tied it up so we have all of our excess there. The remaining length that we've got here just routes down to the breakaway switch here. Our breakaway switch, we mounted just using an open hole that was available on the 6-way connector here on the vehicle. This bracket came with the 6-way connector, and you can see it's got a couple holes on top for potentially mounting the bracket. Well, we had an opportunity to use that free hole to just nut and bolt through our breakaway switch here to hide it. And I did change out the hardware from what it comes with. It comes with a flange nut and bolt, and I don't like the flange nuts and bolts because we're trying to kind of hide this, and it doesn't look too bad right there like it is, but it looks a lot better when you're not flat towing if you can fully hide it a little bit better, kind of minimize this. So we replaced it with a lock nut instead, a nylon locking nut, and that way we can push this off to the side just to kind of help hide it and give us a little bit more streamline across the front here so we're not actually bumping it when it's in our garage or anything like that. And the nylon locking nut won't loosen up as we go back and forth like this. When we go to use it, you slide it out and you go put it away when you're not using it. With the regular flange nut, those usually will eventually work themselves loose going back and forth like this, and then now you got to get in there and fix it. So if you are going to do a kind of a hiding style like this that you can tuck off to the side, definitely get a nylon locking nut so you don't have to worry about that in the future. We also mentioned we had that monitor light wire. This is that black wire with the bullet connector on it. We just follow the same path that our breakaway switch cable followed. So it just runs around the battery up to the front, comes out the side and it comes down. And here's that bullet connector end here. We actually just zip tie it to the breakaway switch and have it right here next to it. We're going to have to route one of these on the motorhome as well, and there's a cable that comes in your kit that will plug your vehicle side into the motorhome side so you can get that monitor light inside your motorhome. So I just recommend putting it right here. If you have any available slots in here as well as on your motorhome, you can integrate it into this, but our customer has a brake controller on it that's going to take up the free slot that we've got here, so we're not going to be able to utilize that since they're using a brake controller on their motorhome. The vacuum line that came in our kit, the vacuum line that we had routed out here, this 1/4-inch air line, this is going to run over towards our engine. Our engine cover here is kind of in the way. This just lifts up pops off of these little tabs there, and we can get this out of the way. And with that out of the way, you can clearly see the area where our factory brake vacuum booster lines are. Our booster's down there, it's just coming up and it's coming over here and plugging into the intake to get its lower pressure. So we need to tap in line here, and it's actually really easy on this vehicle since this hose right here is the factory hose. It just comes out, it does a little 90 and it plugs into the intake. But we can strategically make a slit here, here, and insert our components as necessary into those, into this factory hose right here. So when we made this slit, we used a pair of tubing cutters to make sure that we were going to have a nice clean cut. And I'll show you those here real quick. I've got a pair right here. So here we've just got a piece of hose. And the reason we want to use tubing cutters is because we get clean cuts. You can see this is kind of ratty looking here at the top. Somebody probably just cut that with a pair of side cutters or something. If we use these, you can see it's going to give us a very smooth, clean cut, and that'll help ensure it seals properly to our components. It's even more important to do that on any line that goes into a quick connect fitting. So our smaller airlines, those really need to be used with one of these, because if you have deformations here, it won't seal properly in any kind of quick connect. If you need a pair of tubing cutters, you can get some here at eTrailer. This is a more industrial heavy duty pair, but we've got smaller, a little bit more convenient to use for at home, available on the website here. So always want to take a look at the parts that we've put in here. So the first cut that we make right here after the factory check valve, that's where we put our T that comes in our kit. And I pretty much just left enough of the turn here that's on the factory hose to be able to slide my T fitting into it. Then the other end simply slides into there. The third part of our T is a smaller diameter than these two sides. So you'll use the smaller airline hose that comes in your kit, slide it onto that T, and then the airline tube that we had routed from the inside out that's going to our unit, that'll simply plug into here. This way when our system activates, when we're stopping, our engine's not running to provide us with vacuum, negative pressure or less pressure on our system. So when our pump runs, it can actually draw pressure from the booster to give us assist at the same time. We're not quite done though. We do need to add one more component in here just as a safety feature. The factory check valve was here. Since we're on the other side of it, we're going to put another check valve in right here to make sure that we still have a proper check valve between our components and the engine. And even if you were to put it on the other side, I still recommend that you make sure you get your check valves in the appropriate spots. If you can find diagrams in your instructions on where to put those, but I really like this layout since you have this factory hose. It's really easy to cut and your parts just slide right into it. So we've got everything installed that we need to on our vehicle now. Really all that's left on the vehicle is just putting everything back together. So if you've got any panels out, zip tying up any loose wiring and stuff that you've got, and that's pretty much finishing that up over there. We do have some stuff over here on the motorhome side that we need to do though to get our monitor light working properly. So we'll have to route our monitor cable that comes in your kit. You can see it's got the bullet connector. This is just like the one that's on your vehicle, but this harness is going to be significantly longer because it's designed to be able to route this from the back of your motorhome here near your 7-way up to the front of the vehicle where you're going to install your light. And your motorhome can vary so much in length. We've actually got a pretty short motorhome here today, so we're going to have plenty of leftover on our cable here. But if you've got one of the bigger Class A's, you're going to use most of this wire. And this just routes from here all the way to the front. Typically we go to the engine compartment and route it in to get it inside. The way you're going to take to get it there is going to vary depending on your motorhome, and it varies so much. Even if you had the exact same motorhome as this one here, it could still be different depending on the options that you've got on your motorhome and where you want to route the wire. My recommendation for routing the wire is to just follow any of the pre-existing wire that is already routed from the motorhome company that built your motorhome. Just follow that wire all the way up. That's exactly what we do, is we just follow factory wiring because we know it's routed in a way that's going to avoid anything excessively hot like our exhaust, and it's also going to avoid any moving components like our steering and suspension. So once we get up to the front, we'll give you an idea of a way to pass through to get it inside and how to hook it up. After routing this all the way underneath, just following factory wiring when we come up, we want to look for some way to get it inside near the driver's area so we can get this light. There's a grommet right here on our motorhome, but just what you're going to look for, some kind of grommet. If you don't have a grommet in this roughly location here near where the driver's going to sit, you can drill your own hole. Make sure you fill it back up with silicone, and we also have grommets available here at eTrailer, so that way you can drill your hole properly and get it sealed without potentially damaging your wire. Because if you just drill a small hole and pass a wire through and silicone it up, this is potentially going to be a hot wire at times, and it could short on these circuits. So I highly recommend finding a grommet. After going through our grommet, we routed our wire up, and then we need to mount it here on our dash. Where you will put it just depends on you, wherever you want to put it. I usually recommend putting it in an area to the left or to the right of the steering wheel. Up higher is usually a little bit easier to see, but you also want to have it in a spot that you can access without having to rip the whole front of your vehicle apart. We're going to use a pre-existing button that was located here. That's just a dummy plug, so we're going to put ours in there. You do get a sticker in your kit, and we cut our sticker in half here because of the location we chose to put it in this button. The sticker that tells you what the function of this light is was larger than our area here, so we cut the sticker in half and put a piece below and up top. After you get your wires routed to where you're planning on installing it, you'll need a 5/16 hole for your light to push through, and I actually like to go one size down from that just to make sure it's a snug fit. You can force it in if you go one size down from 5/16. And that's what I did just to make it stay in here a little bit better. Because with 5/16 it's got some ears to hold it in place, but sometimes I found the plastic just seems to be a little bit loose. So you also have a board that comes in your kit. So we've got our LED here, and we've got our soundboard. The soundboard is there for in a period where you've got extended brakes applied, it can activate to let you know, hey, something's going on. Both of these components, the light and the circuit board, are going to use the same circuits. They just need a power and a ground, and the power is going to be the brake output from the vehicle. That's why we had installed a stoplight switch on it. So the wire that we ran up from the back up here, that's going to be that hot wire that's coming from the vehicle to give us that signal. So we simply just crimped it on to the red wire of our switch to make sure it's hot. I took the circuit board as well, and I crimped it onto the same wire. So you can see this is the one we routed up. We go into the butt connector with our soundboard, crimp them together, and then on the other side of our butt connector we put the LED indicator. Next you need to run a ground wire. And the ground wire we can get right underneath the dash. A lot of times you're going to have some metal down there that you can ground to, usually on the firewall. The white wire on our LED and the white wire on our soundboard need to connect to ground. So we use some of the excess black wire that we had routed up here to give us our ground. So we take both of the white wire from the LED and the soundboard, put them on the same butt connector, and then use some of that extra black wire we've got left over from routing. We just routed it back down the hole, and then we used a self-tapping screw and a ring terminal to get our ground right here on the firewall. And here we can see on the firewall, this is the ground where we passed our wire through. We just put the ground right above it because we can easily see on the other side too, where our grommet is here, that there's no components on the other side. Because whenever you run a self-tapping screw in for a ground through like the firewall or something, you always want to check the other side to make sure you're not going to drill into an important component. And we know that this grommet's in a place that's away from any components. And that's all we need to make that operational. We can go ahead and cover that back up and snap our buttons back into place. I do want to recommend that if you do just drill a hole like in the dash here, you're not going to wire it exactly the way I did here as far as pulling your wires through and then wiring them up. The wires are going to be the exact same, but if you just drill a hole in the dash, you're going to want to push your light through and then make sure you wire it on the other side here, because these butt connectors are not going to be able to fit through the size hole that your light needs to mount. So that's why you got to make sure you push the light through first. We've got a button, big, large cavity here, so we can easily pull our wires through, make our connections, and push them back. But again, if you're doing just the light in the dash, make sure you push the wires from the light through first, then you can make your connections. I usually just mount this behind the dash and just the board. With this particular location that we've got here, though, we can just stick all this stuff back in here.
We're here today with John and his wife going over the flat toe setup that we just did on their Jeep Cherokee and their brand new Prism by Coachman motorhome. Before we get started, John, do you have any questions?
I think you'll explain it all to me in a bit, how to hook it up. And
yeah, so the first thing you want to do when you're pulling up, you kind of want to be as center as you can, but it's not real particular of pulling the car up close enough to the motorhome. And usually it's only about this far from the back of the coach. So we've got to come up here about 3 inches. So if you want to pull up there, or 3 feet, I mean, so pull up there and we'll get that hooked up. go through it together. Roadmaster Nighthawk, it's got the lights on it. When your taillights are on your coach, those lights will be on. So this is one of the best tow bars that you can buy. So most of our customers will want a cover and locks.
Yeah.
If you haven't purchased those, you know, they're available on our website.
Okay.
So you can lock the pins onto the base plate, so that keeps everything from being able to be stolen there or removed and just you don't know it. And then you got a hitch pin lock for to lock the tow bar into the motorhome. So when you're camping, you know, you got that cover. It keeps all the weather off everything, sun off everything is mostly what you're worried about, sun. And then if you're going to leave it on the coach all the time, you definitely want to cover it.
Yeah, I will.
But a lot of customers will take it off when they get home, put it in the garage or whatever. And so it just depends on whether you want those items or not.
You think I need a mud flaps?
That would be good for the front of the car. We also sell like a trampoline material that goes right here. Roadmaster calls it a tow defender, I believe. And that keeps rocks from coming up and hitting the car. And there's also a big plastic shield that you can buy from Roadmaster, since you've got all Roadmaster parts, that keeps things off.
Instead of mud flaps? Or
instead of mud flaps, or in conjunction with. If you're ever going to go to Alaska, most people that do that have mud flaps, the shield here and the shield here, and they call that the Alaska pack because the roads are so terrible up there. So just on the front of the car, this is how it'll look when you're not towing. They got this folded in out of the way. It's got a lock nut on it so that you can fold it out and it doesn't ever get loose on you or anything, and you can always fold it back in and keep it. This is your breakaway switch, and this is your monitor wire, which is right here. You plug it into that. So here's your removable arms for your base plate. You just pull out on this tab and turn, a quarter turn, and it comes right out. Put it in, turn it. And then that tab's on the outside. Yeah, because you want that tab up. Okay, so then that's how you do those. And when you're not towing, but it's okay to leave those on there like when you're on vacation. And you don't have to store them somewhere and try to find them. The only thing is they're not locked onto the car. So some of my customers will get them a Rubbermaid tote and put all their towing stuff in it that they want to keep together, and that way whenever you're ready to do this, bring it out, sit on the ground and get everything and then put it. So anyway, so then you got your tow bar, you got to hook up. So this will fold, you can fold it either way, and this is basically how you would do it. Wrap it all up like this and put the cover over it. So they've got it all wrapped up so they could drive it around without dragging anything. We just got to get this back out of here. Everything's kind of stiff and cold today. And they ran it through your breakaway switch cable here.
That's the one.
So that'll bring it over to the car. Right, exactly. And then your 7-way here, of course, and your safety chains. So then to get this, you've got a latch right here to get this down. So you just push back on it a little bit. Give it a little. It's brand new, they're a little stiff, but push that back and then this will fold down. And when you want to latch it, just pushes right into it and folds up. So then I'll let you do one side, I'll do the other here. So you just open that up, pull this pin out, and then you spread it out and get it over to your tow bar. So you put it in through the other way, and then your pin goes through that tab and the hole in there. Just like that. And then make sure that snaps down. If that doesn't snap down and it just kind of folds down without a snap, you need to flip it the other way, because it's on, you've flipped it all the way around. Okay. So those, and you got to be careful with your fingers on those. That can really snap you good. Yeah. Okay, so then you're hooked up, so you're not going anywhere, but you've got to do your wiring and your safety cables. So your safety cables are here. We've got them crossed. We always cross them here close to the motorhome and then run them back. And then you just pull it through here, and there's a safety cable loop right here. You just attach it to that.
Does it matter which direction?
No, It's probably easier to go the other way though. There you go, especially for getting it off. And then next thing is your electrical to run the lights on the back of the car. So this is a 6 round. So the way to get this in there right every time is there's this ridge on top. Okay. So that's 12 o'clock all the time. So just hold that side up and then put it in there and it'll plug right in. And then you want to make sure it gets in far enough that this latch goes behind that ridge. That holds it in there, okay. Yeah. So next you'll fold out your breakaway switch and you'll hook your breakaway cable to it. That's just a matter of clipping that through there. And then you've got your motorhome monitor light from your InvisiBrake, which will plug right into this little bullet connector right here. And then I'd probably just kind of pull some of the slack off of that. Just kind of make sure it's not going to drag. And then of course your hitch pin is in here, and your safety cables are also connected to the motorhome here, and your 7-way is plugged in there. So that's it. So this seems like a lot to do, but really it's just a 5-minute process. Once you do it 2 or 3 times, you won't be nervous about it anymore. So anyway, so you're all hooked up now. So the next thing is to get in the car, set it up to flat tow. But before that, we'll show you where the InvisiBrake is, show you how to adjust it, and show you the monitor light working in the car. Okay. It's super simple operation. It has a cable that goes from that silver cylinder right there up under the carpet to the brake pedal and pulls on the brake pedal. To increase sensitivity, you got to pull out on this knob, okay, and you can turn it. Okay. The guys have set it here by doing a practice run with your motorhome and car here on the parking lot, but that wasn't at highway speeds or anything, so you may need to adjust it a little bit, but it shouldn't be much. Anyway, you pull it out, turn it towards the plus side, you get more pressure, and turn it towards the negative side, it puts less pressure. So if you feel the car pushing the motorhome, you want to go plus. If you feel the car pulling against the motorhome when you're braking, you want to go negative. Okay. And then if you want to go up to the coach and watch the light, okay, I'll pull the breakaway switch. He'll get to see the pedal move, and then he'll come up there and get to see the light come on too. Okay. So it's the switch in the car, not the switch in this motorhome. Right. Okay, so like I said, if you're on the highway and this light is on and you're not braking, you need to check the brakes on the car. Like, let's say you had a box sitting in the front seat for some reason because you thought, well, nobody's going to be riding in there, so I can put this box here, and it falls off and it gets up against the brake pedal. It would drag your brakes till it just wore them out, or it could even, you know, overheat them and cause problems with the rotors or whatever. So you want to check it out as soon as possible. Okay, so that's about it for setting up to get ready to go, other than getting the car in neutral. And we always recommend that you use your owner's manual every time when you set the car up to go into neutral. Okay, thank you much. John. Thank you.
And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's InvisiBrake supplemental braking system on our 2021 Jeep Cherokee.